Okay, let's just dive right in with a pretty stark question. What if the medication's keeping you alive, the ones you rely on, day in, day out? What if they aren't actually designed to cure you? What if they're built for ongoing consumption? Basically a subscription model where pharmaceutical profits depend on you staying, well, sick. Just let that idea sit for a moment.
It really forces you to ask, doesn't it? Where do the incentives truly lie in a system that fundamentally profits from illness? Is the goal really eradication, or is it
Yeah.
management, long-term
Well,
management?
imagine this. A single shot, a cure, readily available, maybe already possible for something like diabetes or Alzheimer's, but it stays undeveloped. Or maybe even suppressed. Why? Because the long-term treatment, the daily pills, the regular injections, that's where the real money is. How does that possibility make you feel about the whole healthcare industry? Does it change how you see that pill you take every morning?
It throws up a huge dilemma, right? This potential clash between financial drivers and what's best for public health. What happens when those two things just don't line up?
I take a pill every morning, chronic condition. It's just routine now. But sometimes I stop and think, is this trust in science? Or is it just dependency? Am I actually healthy? Or am I just sort of functionally maintained by this pharmaceutical subscription?
Yeah.
It really makes you question the definition of health itself in this modern context.
And that feeling, that reliance, it's incredibly common now. So many people live like that. It pushes us to think harder about, well, what does it mean to be healthy versus just managed? Where's the line?
And look at us, society, right? We scream for affordable drugs. We demand breakthrough cures. But then, in the next breath, we criticize the very profits that they say fuel the innovation needed for those cures. Is that even a consistent position? Can we honestly want both things without seeing the inherent tension there?
It's a core paradox in what we expect, isn't it? We want the amazing progress, the cures, but we're deeply suspicious of the economic engine supposedly driving it. It raises big questions about our societal values, really. What are we willing to pay for and how?
And it's not just doctors and pharmacies anymore. Health is everywhere. Targeted ads follow you online, promising miracle relief. Wellness influencers push their solutions. It's this huge, messy web of information. And you're left wondering, who do you actually trust with something as vital as your health?
Yeah, navigating that, it takes serious critical thinking now. You have to constantly sift through what's real guidance and what's just, someone trying to sell you something. It's a skill in itself.
But picture this scenario. A big pharma company develops a cure. Cheap, effective, wipes out a common disease. But releasing it would absolutely kill the profits from their current blockbuster drug, the one that just manages the condition long term. Where's the breaking point? Their duty to shareholders versus, well, a moral duty to public health. Is that conflict just baked into the system we have?
That scenario really highlights the potential ethical fault lines, doesn't it? The intersection of corporate responsibility, fiduciary duty, and the well-being of society. It's incredibly complex, not straightforward at all.
I heard this story once, maybe it's a rumor, I don't know, about an experimental drug. Showed amazing results early on, miraculous even. Then poof, shelved. Official reason, unforeseen complexities. But the whisper was, the cure was too good. It worked completely, eliminated the need for any more treatment. Like I said, maybe just a story, but it taps into that deep suspicion, that nagging feeling. Could it happen?
Exactly. Even if it's just anecdotal, stories like that resonate because they touch that nerve, that fundamental worry. Could progress actually be held back? Maybe not even intentionally sometimes, just by the sheer weight of economic factors.
So when you pay for treatment, what are you actually buying? Are you paying for healing, for getting back to being whole, or are you just effectively renting temporary relief?
Yeah,
And who sets the price and the terms of that rental agreement?
that's a really powerful way to frame it. What's the nature of the transaction? Are we tackling root causes or are we just papering over symptoms? And what does that mean down the line, long term?
We all know the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We hear it all the time. But what if the business model, the dominant one in pharmaceuticals, is structurally set up to sell the pound of cure? Not because it's always best for you, the patient, but because, well, prevention just isn't as profitable.
It forces us to look at the biases, right? The inherent biases within a system that's driven by generating revenue. Does that economic model just naturally, maybe inevitably, favor treatment over prevention?
Think about the opioid crisis for a second. We heard allegations, evidence suggesting companies knew how addictive their products were, yet they marketed them aggressively, pushed them hard for profit. Was that just a one-off, a terrible anomaly? Or does it maybe point to something systemic, a tendency where profit can sometimes just eclipse patient safety?
The opioid crisis is such a stark, tragic example of the human cost, isn't it? When those profit motives aren't properly balanced with ethics, with basic safety, the consequences can be devastating.
Just take a second now. Think about yourself, your family, your reliance on prescription meds. In that whole dynamic, who's the ultimate beneficiary? Is it you genuinely getting healthier? Or is it the company's bottom line? It's a really uncomfortable question to sit with, but maybe necessary.
It's like a personal audit, isn't it? Examining our own relationship with medicine and becoming more aware, critically aware of the economic forces swirling around it.
And it's easy to point fingers at Big Pharma, right? We do it all the time.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, how often do we ourselves reach for that quick fix? The pill. Instead of maybe doing the harder work, the lifestyle changes that might address the reason we need the pill, are we kind of outsourcing our health sometimes and then blaming the provider?
That's a really critical point about personal responsibility. It's uncomfortable.
Wow.
Do we sometimes default to the pharmaceutical solution because it's easier, quicker than making those deeper, more sustainable changes?
Okay, here's a tough one. Put yourself in the shoes of a pharma CEO. You've got two drug candidates on the table. One is a cure, 6 months, disease gone, widespread condition. The other manages the same condition for 30 years. Oh, and it has side effects that need other drugs to manage them. Which one gets the massive development funding? Honestly.
Yeah.
What does your gut tell you? And what does that say about the pressures inside this system?
That thought experiment, it really forces you to confront how economic realities might steer research priorities. It dictates what kind of treatments even become available, potentially, cures versus long-term management.
And we're seeing chronic illness rise and rise. It feels relentless. Is that purely bad luck? Biological destiny? Or could other things be feeding into it? Environmental stuff, diet, maybe even parts of the medical system itself, creating a market for these long-term treatments.
It definitely prompts a much wider look, doesn't it, into where chronic diseases actually come from. It's complex, multifaceted. Are we really getting at the roots?
And what about the architecture of the whole thing? Patents, are they really just about sparking innovation? Or are they more about creating these powerful monopolies? Those drug ads you see everywhere. Are they educating patients, empowering them? Or just manufacturing demand, maybe for drugs people don't strictly need? And regulatory oversight, is it truly protecting us? Or is it sometimes, maybe a bit too close to the industry it's supposed to be regulating? Big questions.
These are absolutely critical questions. They challenge the fundamental assumptions we have about how this whole industry works, how it impacts health, how it impacts innovation itself.
There's this real tension, isn't there? Deep down, we want to believe in medical progress. We want to trust our doctors, the system. But then you see the sheer scale of the money involved, the lobbying power. Doesn't that contradiction, that gap between hope and reality, just inevitably chip away at trust?
That dissonance.
Yeah.
Between our hopes, our deep desire for cures and better health, and the stark reality of the financial drivers. It absolutely can breed skepticism. It makes you question motives. It's like Nietzsche said, right? Convictions are prisons. Are our convictions about the system's goodwill maybe preventing us from seeing a more complicated truth?
I have a friend, a doctor,
Uh-huh.
and they once told me something that really stuck with me. They said medical training often focuses so much on managing symptoms, treating the immediate problem, not always digging for the root cause. And the unspoken reason, they suggested, symptom management. Well, it keeps patients coming back. It generates more consistent revenue than a one-off cure. It's disconcerting.
That perspective really highlights how the economics of healthcare delivery itself can shape medical practice, can influence what gets prioritized in treatment. It's not necessarily malicious, but it's a powerful force.
And maybe the issue isn't just about a few greedy companies. Maybe it goes deeper. Perhaps it's a reflection of our whole economic system, one that just fundamentally rewards recurring revenue, steady income streams. And healthcare, unfortunately, seems like a perfect, maybe tragic example of that principle playing out.
It suggests that what we're seeing in pharma might just be a symptom, right? A symptom of much larger systemic forces within our whole economic framework. You could almost say, borrowing from Jung, it's like the shadow of our economy manifesting in our approach to health.
Think about something like anxiety. We often reach for medication, but isn't anxiety often fueled, or at least worsened, by the very pressures of the society we live in? The same structures that then profit from selling us the pills to cope with it. It feels like a kind of closed loop, doesn't it?
It definitely raises profound questions about the societal roots of our health issues, and are pharmaceutical fixes really addressing those deep roots? or just managing the surface?
Okay, let's get really honest, brutally honest, just with ourselves for a second. Have you ever felt or seen someone feel a weird kind of relief? Maybe even a shift in identity when getting a diagnosis that means lifelong medication. Could that feeling, maybe unconsciously, make us less likely to explore other paths? Harder paths, maybe, that don't involve a prescription?
Wow, that's a piercing question. It gets right into the psychology of diagnosis, doesn't it? How it can shape how we see ourselves, our potential, our approach to wellness.
Look at insulin.
Yeah.
Essential, life-saving, and the cost just keeps going up, up, up. What word accurately describes that situation where access is basically rationed by how much money you have? Is profiting from sickness too harsh?
Hmm.
Or is it just the plain truth?
Cases like that just throw up huge ethical alarms, don't they? About basic fairness, access to essential medicines, the moral side of letting profit dictate who gets to live, basically.
Okay, flip it around. Imagine you're in charge. You developed a breakthrough drug. It costs a fortune to make. Research to give it away. Slash the price, knowing you won't recoup the investment needed for the next breakthrough. Or do you charge what the market will bear, knowing people will suffer, maybe die, because they can't afford it?
Hmm.
Where do you draw that line? It's like a massive, awful ethical tightrope walk.
That thought experiment just perfectly captures the agony of it, doesn't it? The inherent dilemmas in drug development and pricing. You have to incentivize innovation somehow, but you also have this fundamental human right to health. How do you square that circle?
And listen to us as a society. We want cheap drugs.
Hmm.
We want constant innovation. We want ethical companies. And maybe, just maybe, we also want the easy way out sometimes, avoiding tough personal health choices.
Yeah.
Can all those desires actually coexist? Can they all be satisfied in the system we have now? Seems unlikely, right?
It just underscores the trade-offs, doesn't it? The really hard choices and the urgent need for a much bigger, deeper conversation about what we truly value in healthcare. What are our absolute priorities?
And we shouldn't forget history, thalidomide, a tragedy. That happened within the existing rules, within regulations, driven by profit. It shows that just following the law isn't always enough ethically. It's a chilling reminder.
The thalidomide is such a powerful lesson, isn't it? Regulations aren't foolproof. Ethics go beyond legality. Constant vigilance, robust safety. Absolutely critical.
Here's a thought, maybe more unsettling than a conspiracy. What if it's not some secret plot to hide cures? What if it's just the sister itself? Like gravity, it naturally pulls towards profitable chronicity. Managing long-term illness is just better business. No need for mustache-twirling villains. The structure itself might just favor it.
That perspective shifts the focus, doesn't it? From individual bad actors to the deep structure, driven by incentives, by economic logic, not necessarily by malice.
So try this on for size. Could your chronic condition, seen through the cold logic of this system, be viewed as a kind of managed revenue stream? How does thinking about it that way change how you see your own health journey, your future?
It's hindsight.
Jarring.
It's a stark viewpoint. It forces us to confront the potential commodification of being ill within a profit-driven model. Like Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Maybe the unexamined healthcare system isn't either.
And think of that term they use, patient compliance. Sounds reasonable. Follow the doctor's orders. But is the main focus truly on your best health outcome? Or is there also an element, maybe unspoken, of just ensuring you keep taking the product, keep consuming?
Yeah, that term definitely needs a closer look. Whose interest is really number one there? And what are the subtle power dynamics when compliance becomes the goal?
All right, here's a potential mic drop moment. The goal isn't always to cure the patient. Sometimes the goal is to capture the customer. Just let that sink in. The subtle but maybe profound difference.
It's provocative, absolutely, but it really encapsulates that core worry, doesn't it? The potential for business goals to subtly or not so subtly shape healthcare itself.
So let's loop back to that first thought. If a cure for, say, cancer exists, but it's unprofitable, so it's withheld, who's more responsible? The company hiding it? Or the whole societal structure that makes that a rational, even incentivized business decision?
It really forces us to grapple with systemic accountability, doesn't it? Where does the ultimate ethical buck stop? Is it with the individual company or the system that enables, even encourages such choices?
Look, if anything we've talked about today has made you feel uneasy, sparked a question, made you think, Please share that feeling. Talk about it. Start these conversations. Because silence just keeps things exactly as they are.
Absolutely. Open dialogue, critical engagement.
hmm
It's essential if we want a more informed public and maybe eventually a more responsive system.
And what about the wellness industry? All those supplements, diets, alternative therapies, billions of dollars there too. Is it really separate from Big Pharma? Or just another wing of the same marketplace capitalizing on our health anxieties, our desire to feel better? Are we just swapping one kind of consumerism for another?
That's a great question. It makes us think about the boundaries. Are similar economic forces at play, just packaged differently? It's worth considering.
Here's a nasty ethical choice for you. What's worse? Charging a fortune for a life-saving drug, pricing people out of survival, or deciding not to even develop a drug for a rare disease because the market's too small, not profitable enough. Essentially abandoning those patients from the start, which neglect causes more harm.
Both are profoundly disturbing scenarios, aren't they? They highlight these agonizing choices that arise when market logic meets life and death situations.
Maybe we shouldn't think of these companies as villains exactly. Maybe they're more like algorithms, coldly optimizing for profit. And human health, our well-being, just becomes another data point in the calculation.
That's a chilling analogy, but it captures something important. How systemic processes, financial metrics, can sometimes dehumanize healthcare decisions.
Try to picture it. A pharma executive. Their own parent needs a drug their company makes. But policy dictates it's too expensive, denied. That brings it home, doesn't it? The real human cost of these abstract policies and profit motives.
That kind of personal scenario, it really forces you to confront the impact, the very real, relatable consequences of these big systemic forces and trade-offs.
Okay, quick personal inventory. List the medications you take. Now list the lifestyle factors that maybe contribute to needing them. Where's the balance for you between the pharmaceutical fix and your own actions, your own responsibility?
It encourages a more holistic view, doesn't it? Seeing health as this interplay between medical help and our own choices, our own lives.
You hear the term patient-centric care all the time. Sounds great. Focus on the patient. But could it ironically sometimes describe a system designed for such smooth, ongoing dependency that the patient never really gets fully independent and well? Is the center the patient's autonomy or their role as a lifelong consumer?
That interpretation really forces a critical look. What does patient-centric truly mean in practice? What are the actual outcomes?
I heard about this researcher. Brilliant, really ethical. Left the industry completely disillusioned. Said the focus shifted away from pure science, from healing, towards marketing potential, shareholder value. That felt like a huge loss, hearing that.
Stories like that definitely raise concerns, don't they? About how commercial pressures might be warping the direction of science, the very goals of medicine.
So where do we draw the line, ethically? Selling a drug with known side effects may be downplayed?
Yeah.
Is that fundamentally different from selling cigarettes? Is just being legal enough? Or is there a higher moral standard when it comes to health?
It pushes us to think about responsibilities beyond just following the law, doesn't it? Especially around transparency, potential harm when you're dealing with people's lives.
We tend to assume research is objective, pure science. But think about the funding. Who pays for a lot of these trials? Often it's the companies who stand to gain financially from a positive result. How might that dynamic even subtly influence what gets studied, what gets published, what doesn't get published?
It absolutely highlights the potential for bias, doesn't it? And underscores why independent research, transparency, critical scrutiny are so vital.
Here's a potentially uncomfortable truth. You don't need a conspiracy. You don't need secret meetings to hide cures for the system to feel like a conspiracy. Just mix together misaligned incentives, the powerful drive for profit, vulnerable patients needing help, maybe some gaps in regulation, and you can naturally end up in a place where treating sickness is just way more profitable than creating health.
That perspective really emphasizes systemic issues over individual bad intentions, doesn't it? It's like Machiavelli pointed out centuries ago, understand the incentives and you'll understand the behavior.
And who decided health was a commodity in the first place? Something to be bought and sold on a market. Was it just the companies? Or did we, as a society, kind of accept that? Accept that healthcare isn't necessarily a basic right, but something you purchase. That's a foundational question.
It definitely prompts a deeper dive, historically, societally, into the core assumptions our whole system is built on.
You know, my own feelings about this have shifted. I started out just angry at Big Pharma, but now I wonder if they're just a predictable result, a logical outcome of applying market rules to human biology. Maybe the real issue is the system itself, the way it rewards that specific profit motive so heavily.
That's a significant shift, isn't it? You're moving from blaming actors to questioning the stage itself, the underlying economic framework. It forces us to look beyond the symptoms, maybe, to the root causes within the economy.
There's that quote you sometimes hear, supposedly from a retired pharma exec. It's not about keeping people sick, it's about keeping them customers.
Hmm.
Whether it's true or not, in practice, is there really a difference, a meaningful one?
That quote, real or not, just cuts right to the heart of the potential conflict, doesn't it? The alignment of business success with potentially the continuation of illness in a market system.
Think about the hidden costs. Beyond the price tag on the pills, the loss of independence maybe, the alternative paths not taken, the potential cures maybe not even researched. Can you feel the weight of those unspoken things?
Those hidden costs, they're a huge part of the picture, aren't they? Going way beyond just the financial side of relying on medication.
Have you ever felt defined by your diagnosis, like the prescriptions almost become part of your identity? If so, you're not alone. And maybe that's not a personal issue, but a side effect of a system that kind of needs defined ongoing conditions to function smoothly.
That's a really insightful observation, how medicalization itself can subtly shape how we see ourselves, our health, our possibilities.
Look, this is messy. It's complicated. No single bad guy here. It's this tangle of real need, financial ambition, amazing science, clever marketing, desperate hope, fear, all mixed together. Pointing fingers feels good for a second, maybe. But understanding the whole system, the incentives, the consequences, that's harder, but probably much more valuable.
Absolutely. Acknowledging the complexity, the multiple players, the competing interests, that's crucial if we want to get beyond simple blame and actually find better ways forward. Nuance is key.
So what if Big Pharma isn't the main villain? What if it's just the most visible, most powerful part of a much bigger system? A system that maybe unintentionally, maybe by design, just fundamentally benefits from people being sick.
That broadens the lens considerably, doesn't it? Suggests the challenges might be embedded in a whole ecosystem involving lots of different actors and forces, not just one industry.
So if your health depends on a system you suspect profits from your illness, what's your role in that? Patient, victim, customer.
Or maybe even a participant somehow. How do you navigate that? That's a deeply personal, really challenging question. It forces an examination of our own agency, our position within these complex healthcare dynamics.
And it's uncomfortable admitting our own part, right? Demanding quick fixes,
Yeah.
resisting lifestyle changes, accepting the market model. It's way easier to just blame the corporations. But does focusing only on them actually lead to real change?
Acknowledging our own roles, yeah, however uncomfortable. It feels like a necessary step towards making real progress. Moving beyond just accusation.
Imagine a nonprofit develops a miracle cure. Cheap, effective. Could it even survive in today's market,
Yes.
dominated by profit giants? Could it navigate the regulations, the manufacturing, the distribution, or would it just get swamped by the existing economic forces?
That hypothetical really throws the challenges into relief, doesn't it? The massive barriers for alternative models, for nonprofit initiatives trying to disrupt the status quo in healthcare.
Here's a quiet thought to take away. Your compliance, their profit margin. Just remember that link. Your consistent use of treatment is quite literally their sustained revenue.
It's a stark connection, isn't it? Underscores the direct, often unstated financial relationship between patient adherence and company success.
How will future generations look back at us, at this system? The costs, the inequities, the focus on treatment over prevention or cures. Will they see progress, or will they see something else? Something maybe less flattering, disguised as business as usual.
Yeah, placing ourselves in historical context is a powerful exercise. It invites real critical reflection on the ethics and long-term wisdom of our current approach.
Maybe the healthiest thing we can do right now is be skeptical. Question the pills, the diagnoses, the system itself. Not paranoia, but like radical self-preservation, informed decision-making.
Embracing that informed skepticism, actively engaging critical thinking, it really can empower individuals to make more conscious choices about their own health.
I have to admit, I don't know for sure if cures are hidden in vaults somewhere. I really don't. But the incentive structure, the way the whole game is set up right now, that makes me deeply uneasy. And maybe that unease is the only rational response right now.
Acknowledging the uncertainty while staying critically aware of the incentives, that feels like a balanced, responsible way to navigate this landscape. It's complex, it's ethically murky.
We're all caught in this, aren't we? The very sick, the worried well, the doctors, the nurses. We need the system. We rely on its miracles sometimes. But we also resent it, distrust its motives, that tension, that push and pull. Maybe that just is our modern relationship with health and medicine.
Recognizing that shared entanglement, the inherent tensions, the conflicting needs, it's vital for having better conversations and hopefully finding better solutions eventually.
So back to that big question. Is Big Pharma profiting from keeping people sick? The nuanced truths we've kind of explored here. Maybe it's not that the system is designed to make you sick,
Hmm.
but it often finds treating sickness is just consistently, significantly more profitable than promoting health or achieving actual cures.
That nuanced view acknowledges the power of those systemic biases, the economic currents shaping outcomes, even without deliberate ill intent everywhere.
Okay, final thought to leave you with. Mull this over. Health, true health, isn't really a product you can buy, but sickness. Sickness is a market, a huge, booming, multi-trillion-dollar global market. Let that sink in.
That contrast really frames the fundamental tension, doesn't it? Health as a right versus sickness as a commercial opportunity.
If this whole deep dive left you feeling unsettled, maybe a bit angry, maybe just thoughtful, that's okay. That's good even. Sit with it. Let it churn. Maybe listen again tomorrow, see what feels different. That discomfort, that's often where the real thinking starts.
Exactly. Grappling with uncomfortable ideas, challenging what we thought we knew. That's how we grow, how we understand complex issues more deeply.
So if this felt important, if it touched on questions you've had, share it. Send it to someone. No need to explain why. Just put it out there. Let the questions hang in the air. Let's get more of these conversations started.
Facilitating that dialogue, encouraging different perspectives, it's absolutely vital for tackling systemic problems and building awareness.
This has been the Deep Dive. We're not here to give easy answers. Not here for comfort. We're here to create friction, to spark questions, especially about the systems we rely on, the ones we maybe take for granted. Question everything, especially the things holding power over your life.
Because that questioning, that commitment to understanding how things really work,
Yeah.
that's fundamental if we want to create a healthier, fairer, maybe just more humane future for everyone.